She had been trying for 5 years, and her success in this contest would determine whether or not she was a true alchemist. Sarasa's parents were murdered by criminals, and her store was looted as well, forcing her to enter an orphanage. She spent all of her time studying while the other kids played. One day, an alchemist went to the orphanage to thank this institution for raising her. Sarasa had a chance to meet her. She really admired the alchemist and wished to be the same person like her. But becoming an alchemist required a degree. When Sarasa was older, she enrolled at the Royal Alchemy Academy, where anybody from the aristocracy to the ordinary people could attend classes. However, the tests there were extremely challenging, and failing even one would mean that Sarasa's ambition would end. That was why Sarasa buried her head in school while also worked so hard to supplement her income. Sarasa had no friends and occasionally attended pointless meetings that she didn't need to attend, yet some of the encounters changed her life. After 5 years had gone by, and the final exam was scheduled for tomorrow, Sarasa hurried to the store to see her master, since Sister Millis had taught her a lot. Maria styled Sarasa's hair before she entered the test room on the final day to check if Sarasa could continue. The written exam came first, followed by the practice test, and Sarasa felt quite confident. But when she noticed that a failing person had come out, she began to second-guess herself. The theme was to make intermediate healing potions, which Sarasa had done all the time with her master. But when she looked at the materials, there were none. Sarasa panicked somewhat. Trying to calm herself down, what would she do if there were no intermediate healing potion ingredients? Perhaps the judges were assessing her differently. Sarasa took a closer look at the components and realized they were all for the intermediate healing potion. Her instructor had previously shown her how to make it, but it required a great deal of magic power. Sarasa would make it. The judges were startled when she eventually succeeded after putting a great amount of concentration. A man rushed over, and it turned out that the materials he had brought were incorrect, but Sarasa nevertheless managed to pass the test. The judges were considerably taken back by Sarasa's brilliance. It had already exceeded the standard. Sarasa had received her diploma. For the last 5 years, she had done nothing except spending her time in school, but now she would follow her own path. Sarasa ran to the shop to meet her master. Milan congratulated Sarasa on passing the exam. Sarasa came here to ask her teacher to take her to purchase the Alchemy Encyclopedia. Sarasa had already considered this from the first time she met her master, which was why she had saved enough money to buy them over the last 5 years. Sarasa refused to stay there to work since she wanted to be independent, despite Master's request. Millis concurred and handed her a bag to lighten her luggage before taking Sarasa to a store to purchase the encyclopedia. Her classmates observed Sarasa and Millis with admiration because Millis was a well-known alchemist in town. Had they knew that Sarasa was close to Millis, they would have become acquainted with her sooner. After buying the books, they needed a place for Sarasa to complete her internship. They went to the intermediary shop to look for options, but Sarasa was unsure of where to go because the money had already been allocated for buying the encyclopedia. Millis quickly directed her to a cheaper place. This location, where the alchemists resigned from their positions, took her a month to go. That made Sarasa a little pale. It was even a rural place, so there would be no guests. Milan encouraged her disciple to attempt, and if they failed, she would take Sarasa to work as a graduation present. Then they came back to celebrate. Millis handed Sarasa another gift early the next morning before departing. After so many difficulties, Sarasa managed to reach her shop, but her intentions were derailed by how run down it looked. Episode 2. Sarasa rapidly regained her spirits. Rather than just sitting around doing nothing, she decided to check over the business condition first. The master had picked this particular shop for her. Sarasa noticed some herbs out of the blue, and then she recalled that there was also a herbal garden nearby. She took a few to sell to help with living expenses. Sarasa quickly sought for the engraving of the home, after seeing that it was not nearly as filthy as she had assumed. She reasoned that if she added magic to the engraving, the house would automatically be cleansed. There were 8 rooms in this house, including the bathroom. Sarasa stumbled into the room for potions and leaped up because, as the master had said, it was equipped with a potion furnace and all the required equipment. Sarasa picked out a place to stay for herself, cleaned it up, and then dashed down to check on the herbal garden. She spied a nearby well since it was so abandoned, and fortunately for her, it still had enough water for her to survive. However, she first needed to collect some survival items. The little girl was Loria, and she was very excited when she realized that Sarasa was an alchemist for the kingdom, because the stories from the kingdom were too far away for her. Loria wanted to ask Sarasa whenever she was free to tell her some stories there. As a result, Sarasa could receive a discount on purchases. Sarasa was introduced to Miss Els by Loria. She was her neighbor. Els then gave Sarasa a tour of the village, pointing out that the house had been once occupied by an elderly alchemist, who had to leave because of his advancing age in order to return to live with his family. Sarasa took it back, which made Els extremely happy, because everyone needed medicine. She took Sarasa to the carpenter shop, where she was given a free bed thanks to Els, then to Mr. Jiz's metal shop. Next was to welcome the village commander, and finally to Mrs. L's neighboring inn to dine. The innkeeper gave Sarasa a warm welcome, although she felt a little sorry for Sarasa because the location was too isolated. Sarasa said that she cherished this location since it had both plants and fresh air. Due to two women's attentive listening and widening of their eyes, Sarasa was once again able to dine for free. The people there were really kind, but Sarasa was not close to anyone and did not dare to eat, since a rather male invited her some specialties. Sarasa had worked all day and was exhausted. When she got home, she sat down and wondered what would happen if there were no clients. Sarasa then began preparing medication to place in vials in preparation of people buying them, and she took a number of unresolved questions with her to go to bed. The bell roused her up the following morning at a very early hour. Sarasa wondered who would came this early in the morning, and went downstairs, but discovered that it was actually her master. Millis strolled up the hill and down dale to visit her student. She knew Sarasa had to live alone, so she wanted Sarasa to learn how to fight. Millis handed her a sword and told her to fight as hard as she could. Of course, Sarasa couldn't hit Millis. They practiced till the evening. Sarasa was exhausted and sat down to dine with her master. The reason she was there was to order a combat. As long as Sarasa desired anything, Millis could bring from the kingdom to her. It was then time to return, and Sarasa begged her master to stay a little longer. But Millis declined, because she didn't want Maria to be responsible of the shop alone. Sarasa cried out of loneliness when being home alone. The following morning, when she was awakened by noises, she went downstairs to check, and found a large group of people there, who had all, without exception, decided to fix Sarasa's shop. This made her feel really sad. When Sarasa invited Loria to spend the night with her that day, after mentioning how much she loved the town, and how well-liked she was, their responses were the same. Sarasa remarked that she needed someone to assist her, and Loria brightened her eyes to apply. Her business only imported once a month, so she wanted to be there the rest of the time to work with Sarasa. Sarasa emotionally approved right away. They opened the business jointly the next day, and when they were completed, there was an immediate job. Episode 3. A large group of people brought a girl who was badly hurt. Her severed arm was poisoned, and her body had sustained bad injuries, making them doubt whether they could still rescue her. According to Sarasa's early analysis, the girl may still be saved, but it would be expensive. Sarasa offered them two options. First, detoxify, and second, have her return to her completely original state. The sister who accompanied the girl instantly wanted her to return to her former state, and the males accompanying her were enraged because they felt Sarasa was a selfish person. This girl was in serious condition, but Sarasa still calculated about the money. Kate shut them up immediately away, promising to pay for everything. Sarasa saw what was going on, and used all of her might to treat Iris. Basically, it was done, and Sarasa simply waited for Iris to recuperate and wake up, till Sarasa welcomed Kate to remain at her house to heal. It was late. Sarasa and Loria had finished cleaning the store, and while Sarasa exhaled a sigh of comfort that Kate would pay for everything, Loria was furious with the other guys, because they were acting like they were the world's fathers, and expected everyone to obey them. Sarasa was also a little irritated with those guys, but happily she had figured out how to handle them. They were fortunate that Kate consented to pay. Nevertheless, Sarasa would still have been able to restore Iris to her previous state if Kate had refused. This was likely the pride of an alchemist, since if they wanted to have further guests in the future, they would have to pay for the additional visitors, rather than save them for free due to the limited supply of medication. To achieve a balance that benefited all parties, she had to exchange back and forth with money. Iris didn't want to wake up before Kate, and she expressed their gratitude to Sarasa for saving her life. Instead, they fell backwards when they realized how much money they needed to spend. It was too much, but they would do their best to compensate Sarasa. Sarasa had just pondered about the beast that attacked them. This animal was not as terrible as the others, but if they were allowed to continue in this way, they would kill the entire town. Sarasa decided to go gather supplies. Kate and Iris also wanted to accompany her, since they knew it would threaten Sarasa. Iris gasped in amazement when Sarasa kicked the bear. The bear immediately died. Sarasa dissected it and realized that something very enormous was approaching the village, so she hastily returned to alert the village commander. Sarasa believed that the bears were crazy since there wasn't enough food for them, but soon they would arrive to destroy the settlement based on their eyes. Sarasa hurried outside to let everyone know that they would need to work together to stop them. Iris and Kate agreed to assist her. Everyone followed Sarasa to the battle because they knew that if they left, this place would become deserted. To lure the bears into the town center, Sarasa came up with a plan. To do this, they needed to set up a fence. So many people banded together to build it. Sarasa concentrated on producing as many drugs as she could, knowing that she would incur losses, but would make up for them by obtaining the materials from the bears. The scout estimated that there were roughly 20 bears when he warned that the bears were approaching. As everyone started to sway and flee, Andre had to calm them down. Iris mustered all her resolve to pick up the blade, vowing not to throw away the life Sarasa had given her. The bears invaded the settlement after being drawn in by the bait they laid, and they all perished. Before the boss showed in and made everyone drowsy. The bears were actually fairly feeble. Sarasa wasn't scared, so she grabbed the blade and charged forward to sever the bear's head. Sarasa pulled back when she heard the whistle again, this time from the rear, and she realized she was in danger. Sarasa ran home, furious that the bears were attempting to hurt Laria. Sarasa put an end to this incident, and everyone was shocked by her power, but she became too exhausted and fell immediately.